President von der Leyen, your presence here, together also with Secretary General Mark Rutte and President Zelensky, signals our shared determination. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow marks a historic day for NATO, a historic day for our collective security, and a historic day for our defense industry. Within the next 24 hours, we expect all 32 NATO allies to agree on the 5% The Hague Defense Investment Pledge. This week's events in the Middle East have only underscored the growing instability in the world and the urgent need to strengthen our defense and scale up our defense industry. Now is the time to deliver. The 2025 NATO Summit puts the spotlight on world leaders. But NATO's true strength lies beyond these walls, in the armed forces of 32 nations, the men and women who stand ready every day to defend our freedom. But they can only fly, navigate, drive and fight with the right equipment, weapon systems and real capabilities. It is real delivery that counts. And that responsibility lies with us, governments and industry. It's our job to move from pledge to product. The Netherlands aims to punch above its weight through our deliveries to Ukraine, through deep cooperation with Germany in our land forces, and also, for example, at Eindhoven Air Base, where we lead one of NATO's most successful multinational projects, the multi-role tanker transport fleet. Today, we proudly welcome Denmark and Sweden to this project, along with 2 new aircraft on order. You may know the Netherlands for our expertise in water and in water management, from New Orleans to Dubai. But now we are taking that expertise to a new frontier, to the bottom of the ocean. That's why we recently launched CSEC, a coalition of 6 nations, leading companies and researchers to protect the critical infrastructure beneath our oceans. Pipelines, cables, offshore platforms, these are lifelines in today's connected world. That same urgency is what we see in today's forum, with key contracts being signed, turning ambition into real capabilities. The key lies in creating new types of partnerships between government and industry. Not the typical buyer and seller's game, but new partnerships built on trust, transparency, long-term vision, and a shared purpose. And that requires new ways of working. As a Minister of Defense, I face the dilemma of, on the one hand, the need for international cooperation, and on the other hand, the pressure to have our national Dutch industry benefit from our increasing defense budgets. Let's be open about these dilemmas and find solutions to overcome these dilemmas. Let's find smart ways of cooperation that are beneficial to all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, every time that I visit Ukraine, I'm impressed how Ukrainians are leading the way. When I was in the command center in Kharkiv, I saw the military working together with volunteers and with entrepreneurs. Volunteers were looking at big screens, watching live drone images and analyzing data. Military commanders were guiding the soldiers at the front line. Entrepreneurs were working closely together with them to optimize their drones and their technology. This intense collaboration enabled the troops in Kharkiv to adapt their operations every 3 weeks. And this is the only reason why Russia has not been able to capture Kharkiv yet. And let this be a source of inspiration to us. So I say to each of you, CEOs, ministers, commanders, innovators, let's reach out to each other. We need to create much closer and deeper partnerships to protect our security, our freedom, and our way of life. So let's unite, let's innovate, and above all, let's deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Brekelmans. You emphasized strongly the need for strong partnerships and a whole-of-society approach. Mr. Brekelmans, I invite you to stay with us for a minute, and can I invite Ingrid Thijssen to the stage to hand over the ambition statement, the industry statement, on behalf of various communities of industry. And I would like to now invite the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, to the stage.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Welcome home, Mr. Secretary General.
Absolutely.
And now we have the official handover of the ambition statement.
Yes, and that's exactly what this is. An ambition statement from the North American and European business community.
Yeah.
So it says, in short, that we are, of course, really ready to continue to contribute to the security of NATO. And therefore, I'm really proud to present this to you on behalf of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, Business Europe, the US Chamber of Commerce, and of course, my own Confederation of Netherlands Industry and Employers.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
There you go.
So much. This is huge. Great. Thank you. Now, of course, I will keep this the rest of the day. It's very easy to...
Put it on your back, man.
Yeah, we can put it... Yeah.
We will make a miniature version of this for you,
exactly.
so you can
That's okay.
carry it with
Shall
you
I
all
put
the
it-
time.
I put it here. That's maybe...
Thank you very much, Ingrid Thijssen,
you.
for handing over this statement. Thank you very much, Minister Brekelmans. Mr. Secretary General, can I invite you to address
I would
the
love to.
forum?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that special moment, Ingrid, and thank you for those inspiring words, Minister Brekelmans, dear Ruben. And thank you to everybody involved in organizing this important forum at the Dutch Ministries of Defense and Foreign Affairs, the Confederation of Netherlands Industry and Employers, and of course my wonderful colleagues at NATO. And it's also a pleasure, as always, to be here with my good friend Ursula von der Leyen. There is an ancient Roman saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. It's a simple idea. Make your defenses so strong that no one dares to attack you. Today, NATO's military edge is being aggressively challenged by a rapidly rearming Russia, backed by Chinese technology and armed with Iranian and North Korean weapons. We need to unite, innovate and deliver, and that's exactly what this forum is all about. Across the alliance, we have opened hundreds of new production lines and expanded existing ones. We are now on course to produce more ships, more planes and ammunition than we have done in decades. And NATO is using its unique power to drive demand, increase cooperation and enhance innovation. Just moments ago, we brought allies together to sign another set of important multinational projects. This includes establishing NATO innovation ranges to better integrate technology into our armed forces. And another project to secure the supply chain of defense-critical raw materials. We also agreed to expand our multinational, multi-role air tanker transport fleet. As you mentioned, Minister Brekelmans, dear Ruben, this is a brilliant example of NATO working together with the European Union to deliver world-class air-to-air refueling, transport and medical evacuation capabilities. When it comes to our partners, I'm delighted that we are also joined by our friends from the Indo-Pacific and Ukraine, the source of so much of today's innovation and cutting-edge capabilities. And I welcome the fact, dear Ursula, that Europe is really stepping up. The Readiness 2030 plan promises to unleash up to 800 billion euros for defense. There's no defense without a strong defense industry. And there's no European security without a strong transatlantic bond. So we need to bring down barriers and encourage truly transatlantic defense cooperation. Only Europe and North America together can rise up and meet the challenge. And of course, this includes working with Ukraine, an industrial and innovation powerhouse. And let me welcome the news out of London yesterday of a massive British investment in Ukraine's defense industry, plugging Ukraine's drone producers directly into the British industrial base. This is all great, but we need to do more, we need to do it better and together, and we need to do it now. It is simply unthinkable that Russia, with an economy 25 times smaller than NATO's, should be able to outproduce and outgun us. We must spend more to prevent war. We must win this new war of production. That's what this summit is all about. Allies have agreed an unprecedented uplift in our capability targets. So we now know exactly what forces, resources and capabilities each ally needs to provide. This will require a quantum leap in our collective defense. But I know that when there is a will, our world-class industries and entrepreneurs will find a way. This will also require bold decisions from our political leaders. And that's what we will do at the summit tomorrow, with an ambitious new defense investment plan to spend 5% of GDP for defense. This will mean a huge defense dividend, an engine of growth for our economies, driving literally millions of jobs on both sides of the Atlantic. NATO's leaders are about to take an historic step to provide the resources necessary for strong defense. And now it's up to industry to deliver, and yes, to deliver. So let's get to work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Thank you for emphasizing the urgency of the challenge, but also that we can actually achieve the challenge of transatlantic partnership, the stronger role of the EU, the partnership with Ukraine. Thank you so much. And I would now please warmly welcome Her Excellency Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, to join us on stage for her keynote speech.
Thank you. Secretary General, dear Mark, Minister Brekelmans, thank you first of all for bringing us together here in The Hague. Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear representatives of the defense industries, I'm so grateful for this opportunity to exchange with you. Because we all know that the future of Europe, yes, is being written on the front line in Ukraine, but not only. It is also being written in your factories. In record time, you have managed to open new lines and step up production. You're adapting to the new reality of a full-scale war right here on European soil. And just like your industry, all of Europe is facing a changing international landscape. As we've just heard, rightly so, the security architecture that we relied on for decades can no longer be taken for granted. It is a once-in-a-generation tectonic shift. But in recent months, Europe has taken action. Action that seemed unthinkable just a year ago. We set up the Rearm Europe plan to mobilize indeed 650 billion euros in defense investment over the next 4 years. And in addition, in just 4 months, we created a new financial instrument, we call it SAFE, with 150 billion euros in loans for joint procurement. So overall, as you said, Readiness 2030, 800 billion euros over the next 4 years to be invested in defense. Last week, I think also important, we proposed a simplification omnibus to radically simplify and thus speed up our defense investment. And we signed by now 8 defense and security partnerships with countries across the world, the latest of them actually yesterday with Canada. The Europe of defense has finally awakened. Tomorrow, the summit will set indeed historic new spending targets for NATO allies. But how we invest is just as important as how much we invest. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has changed warfare. On the one hand, it has consumed more hardware than any other war. But on the other hand, battles have been won and lost because of software, jamming systems, and artificial intelligence. So as we replenish our stocks, we must also modernize our legacy systems and cater for new technological needs. This is vital for credible deterrence, and the European Union has an important role to play here. While NATO sets the standards and the capability target field, and this is why we have set up a Defense Innovation Office in Kyiv, because we want to learn from Ukrainians' battlefield experience. But innovative startups inside our union can also play an important role. Since the start of the war, investment in European defense tech startups has increased by 500%. But we still lack funding for the critical stage from the startup to the scale-up. We must get better at this. We lose too many startups at the beginning. Our startups must be able to grow and to grow here in the European single market. We need to identify potential unicorns proactively and channel more capital towards them, both from public and private investors. Our continent is home to so many innovators and pioneers. They must be able to find what they need to thrive right here in Europe. My second point, we must build more bridges between civilian and military. Many critical components of 21st century defense are, as we all know, dual use. Chips, cloud services, software, satellite, artificial intelligence, you just name it. Our defense industry needs seamless access to the high end of these vital technologies. But today, dual-use projects are often not allowed to run on civilian platforms. We have to change this. We will allow dual-use projects to access our new AI gigafactories with their unparalleled computational power. And the same goes for our European Innovation Council Fund for startups. We will seek this kind of synergy across the board. We must better connect our tech industry with our defense industrial base. And my third point, finally. Today, we are asking the defense industry to deliver, as you've said, to deliver at speed and at scale. But I also know, this is your responsibility, this is your task, but we also know that we have to do homework, that we have to create conducive, right conditions for this to happen. And there, for instance, our safe loans, with them we incentivize joint procurement and long-term contracts. This is a long-standing ask of your side. This will give you the predictability you need to scale up production. And importantly, SAFE is open not only to our union's member states, but also to candidate countries, so future members like Ukraine. And it is open to our defense and security partners, like the UK or Japan, like Norway or South Korea. And yesterday, indeed, we signed the Security and Defense Partnership with Canada. We are also clarifying our rules for cross-border transfers of defense products and multinational industrial collaboration. This is the way to speed up and scale up, not in isolation, but together with our most trusted friends. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that Russia will be capable of testing our mutual defense commitments within the next 5 years. By 2030, Europe must have everything it needs for credible deterrence. This is what we call Readiness 2030. But this requires a new mindset for all of us. We must be ready to leave our comfort zone. We must be ready to explore new ways how to do things, bringing together the tech and the defense, the civilian and the military in Europe and, of course, beyond the European Union. I'm deeply convinced, with the right mindset, we can deter everyone who seeks to do harm to us. For a stronger NATO and a stronger and safer Europe, I thank you for this opportunity to engage with you. Long live Europe, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President von der Leyen, for emphasizing the substantial role of the EU on security, the substantial support for Ukraine, and the substantial role in scaling up defense production. We will now have a panel on EU-NATO synergies, and it will be moderated by Monica Sidianho, Director of the Klingendahl Institute for International Relations.
Thank you, Koen. And Your Excellencies, thank you so much for your clear and very concrete directions in your speeches. Having the leadership of the EU and NATO side by side on this platform is a very clear political signal. So, Madam President, why is it so important that your organizations work together?
So, we've spoken about it many times, looking at this room. Let's take the perspective of a member state or an ally. Every country has one single set of forces. And then it's a political decision to send them into NATO operations or European Union missions, United Nations missions, or the coalitions of the willing. So from this angle on, one single set of forces, it's of utmost importance that we work very, very closely together, that in any kind of theaters, these forces can work together and interoperability is given. Everyone here in the room knows how important interoperability is and that it's not so easy to make it happen with the industrial structure that we had so far. So this is something where we really have to work on. The second reason why it is so important that we work together is that the modern hybrid threats do not differentiate between external and internal security or threats. Yeah. So whether it is cyber attacks or it is the sabotage we see, for example, in our infrastructure, but also the traditional warfare, but also the electronic warfare that we see, we have to work extremely closely together to make sure that we are able to deter these threats and to work against them. So two good reasons why NATO and the European Union should work closely together, not to speak of military mobility. All these topics play a big role. I was just mentioning the omnibus, so the simplification in our rules. For example, permitting rules, you know how important that is and how cumbersome sometimes the permitting process is. Now we change this, we reduce the obligation, the permitting process, we reduce the time for permitting. Sounds very technical, is of crucial importance for you. And this is a European Union responsibility, but of course it helps us, but it also helps you. Absolutely. So we are as one. Yeah.
So we know the why, and you have stressed the importance of NATO-EU cooperation for years. How have the organizations stepped up this cooperation more recently?
Well, of course, for NATO, the EU is our essential partner. There's no doubt. And when I came into this office in October, one of the first things I did was grab the phone and call the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and we had lunch. And basically we said, we have to make sure that this works. Mm-hmm. Because there are risks. Let's be honest. The EU is an organization based on unanimity in many cases. NATO is completely based on unanimity. So you need the 27 in the EU, the 32 in NATO, to come to agreements. And it is not always easy, and then sometimes that creeps into the relations between the officials of both organizations. We said that will never happen. If there is a problem emerging, then we will grab the phone and we will only hang up when we have solved this, and even a comfort break is not on the cards.
That's
So it has not happened so far. And why is this important? For all the reasons Ursula was mentioning here. And let me just add, the European Union has this huge soft power of bringing together countries and industries, helping to build a defense industrial base. NATO, of course, focusing very much on the hard stuff of capabilities and standardization. And this is a total fit. And the good thing is, with you at the helm of the Commission, with Andrus in the Commission, with Kaja Kallas, with Antonio Costa, we have people now in the senior leadership in the EU who all have a background to understand why this is important. Next to me is sitting the former defense minister of Germany. So, I mean, you don't have to explain to her why this is important.
Indeed, I sat for 5 years in NATO sessions.
Exactly,
and
almost.
The good part is what you just rightly so said. Excellent cooperation starts with the leadership. So you know the European Union by heart too.
111 summits, I would say.
Wow.
That's amazing.
World record.
The fact that you are coming to our college, that you are inviting commissioners to the NAC speaks volumes. And indeed, I want to emphasize here in the room, because I have this NATO experience, it is, of course, guaranteed that with the push in the defense industrial base and the additional funding that we're supplying, I'm fully aware of the fact that we have to look at the identified capability gaps of NATO. And of course, we have to live up to the norms and standards of NATO. It would be completely crazy if we created different worlds. We know already how difficult it is to tackle the fragmentation we have today. So we have to even be better in not having too much divided and fragmented production lines. But because of this knowledge, it is for us essential that we fully align to these NATO standards and norms, for example, or the gap analysis, because this is only how we then create capabilities, military capabilities that are fit for one single set of forces.
Can I add one thing? What this President of the Commission is doing, one of her first visits was to Turkey. You were able to come to a new deal with the United Kingdom. You were investing in relationships with Norway, of course, with the United States. You and the President of the United States know each other very well. And that all helps, because the EU is 23 of the 32 NATO allies. 29 NATO allies are outside the European Union. But by the fact that this President of the Commission is investing in all those relations, makes it also easier for me internally to get this done, and therefore make use of that combination of power.
That's an important point indeed. Sorry, we take.
No, you can
take over.
I like
But,
the enthusiasm, yeah.
But as Mark said, we have developed this security and defense partnership agreements. For example, with the UK, that was the first one, with Norway, also with Japan and South Korea, and yesterday with Canada. So through UK, Norway and Canada, of course, comes also NATO mindset into the security and defense partnership that we have in the European Union. And you hear from my words how close we are and how much we work, and working together to having the defense posture that is necessary, while knowing that we're different entities, but we know where the adversaries are. We know that we face a common threat. And we know that the adversaries do not differentiate between NATO and the European Union. They have their strategic goals, and we have to deter that.
The EU adapts to the geopolitical context. And maybe more specific to this Defense Industry Forum, what more could be done to drive innovation and industrial production?
So, innovation, if you look at the situation at the moment being with Russia's war in Ukraine, I must say, like all of you here in the room, I am deeply impressed how Ukraine, while fighting a war for their survival, has developed a defense industry, drones and ballistic missiles from scratch, because there was nothing 3.5 years ago. And this while fighting a war. And of course, they are extremely innovative. And they explain to me, and I think also to all the others of you, they have learned, then Russia has learned. They have learned, Russia has learned. They have learned, Russia has learned. So they are, I think, the most modern what drones is concerned worldwide at the moment being. But Russia also has this knowledge. We should not underestimate that. So therefore, first point, our innovation office in Kyiv is there that we learn from Kyiv what it's all about. That's one part. Then in general, we have brilliant startups. We have talented people, fantastic minds here in the European Union with super startups. But then we see that this scaling up is difficult. Here in the European Union, it's mostly access to capital and sometimes cumbersome procedures in the single market that is not single enough, but fragmented. So what we do at the moment, BEIC, specifically create, we call it the Savings and Investment Union, which is a deep and liquid capital market essential for our startups. And to create for innovative startups a so-called 28th regime so that they have one single regime, legal regime to look at when they want to grow and scale up in the European Union. And the third point is indeed the partnerships we were just addressing. These partnerships, of course, are also important for the strategic depth we need. So these are topics or these are work strands that you can use to boost innovation.
Thank you for those clear examples. And Mr. Secretary General, what main barriers do you see? And how could the organizations cooperate to optimize?
Yeah, well, what I've learned over the years is NATO and the EU are difficult beasts because you have unanimity, you have many different points of view. So perfection is not to be achieved because for perfection you need too much time and nothing will happen in the meantime. So I think what we are doing now is working together in the spirit of keeping speed, the better not being the enemy of good. And when it comes, for example, to developing this whole issue of the defense industrial base and within that, the issue of innovation, the fact that we have this experience between U4 and K4 in the Western Balkans. So we know how NATO and the EU can closely work together. The same is now the case in Kyiv. We are really working very closely together, almost as one team, where we have the commands in Wiesbaden, of course, also working for Ukraine. We have our team in Ukraine. We have the EU team in Ukraine. And what we try to do is to make sure that this is all working as one, and having not too many official stuff going on and Mr. So-and-so and excellency this. Keep it practical, keep it going, and know that perfection will never be there because you will always have allies in NATO or member states in the EU who will try to slow it down a bit. But then you have to make sure that you work on the 80-90% of the countries who really want to speed up. Spend your time there. That's much more efficient than spend all your time on the one or two laggards.
That's the spirit. Madam President, Mr. Secretary General, thank you for your guidance and success in the days to come.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We go out or
I have no idea. I have no idea. I think we go out. We now go out. Yeah, we go out? Okay.
Oh, is Zelensky coming?
He's coming.
We stay here?
Come on, stay.
Please.
We stay here.
Yeah.
You stay here.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. I think this forum and the way you engage with each other indicates how much progress we have achieved in bringing the NATO alliance and Europe together. And I think that's to the benefit, of course, of the alliance. It's to the benefit of Europe. And it also is to the benefit of Ukraine. And I think, Madam President, you rightly talked about the fact that we were all woken up by the innovation that Ukraine has been able to bring to the battlefield, which was quite impressive. Every time we visit Ukraine, we see in 3 months things have changed. And I think it has woken up everybody here that it's important to support Ukraine, but also it's important to continue our own innovation. We have woken up from a deep sleep, and I think this room is part of that new movement to basically bring the innovation to NATO as well and to the EU. So we're very grateful for this display of cooperation. And we are now waiting for our next guest. Excellent. So it will take another minute for our next guest to join us. And of course, this afternoon, we will have several panels where we focus on some of the issues that you have discussed, including on financing, including how to achieve the capability targets. And we will also talk to the military side of NATO and talk about how all of this, all of what is going to happen tomorrow during the summit will help us basically bring closer the capacities and the capabilities we need in order to make sure that NATO is the alliance that is effectively deterring any aggression. So I think we have a program that will really help foster this partnership that we're looking for, the partnership between governments, the partnership between governments and the private sector, and also, of course, between the knowledge institutes that we now fully engage. So thank you very much for, and we will take another minute. And
Singing your praise that you keep on talking.
it's the job. It's the job, and it's the mission that we need to do. So, but thank you very much for being here. Give us 30 seconds or so, and we will be back with you, and we will continue our program. Welcome to a very exciting afternoon session of the NATO Summit Defence Industry Forum. A very special welcome to the President of the European Commission,